Hello everyone, how are we doing today? It's a quite grey day today where I am. A bit rainy, not very inspiring, but life goes on, I suppose. One thing I want to talk to you about today is the issue of hypervigilance, which I notice in a lot of the clients I see, especially people from the LGBTQI plus community. And what hypervigilance means is essentially being always on guard or being always aware that there's a danger potentially happening nearby. And this danger isn't necessarily a physical threat. It's just this kind of constant expectation of something bad to happen. And unfortunately, this is something that is the daily lived in experience for a lot of people, especially members of the community, because we live in a world that's so homophobic and transphobic and so toxic for gay people, for trans people, or other members of the community, intersex, asexual, non-binary, and so on. They really go through their day expecting to be attacked, expecting to be invalidated in some sort of way, even if it's just microaggressions. For example, some people might go to work and they may have to put up with sexist, homophobic jokes. Other people might basically just hear comments on their daily commute on the train. Others may really just constantly have to think about the route they take, the clothes they wear, how they behave, how they speak. They're incredibly subconscious. Some of them, I work with some trans clients who really have to be very careful the way they interact with others for their own safety. And this, of course, develops a hypervigilance because you are going through your day constantly waiting to be called upon to react in a certain way and to defend yourself. See, for example, if I go to the cinema late at night, I get into my car and I don't really pay a lot of attention to what I wear. And I go in and I sit wherever I like and pretty much do how I please and I come straight home. If I'm a trans person, for example, of course I can do that. But there are a lot of other questions that I constantly have to think about. How do I dress? Will I be noticed? Can I pass? Will people notice me in a negative way? Will they approach me in a negative way? Where do I park my car? Is it safe? Can I go and sit anywhere in the cinema, or do I rather be in a certain space away from the main block of people? Who do I go with? How do I address people? How do I dress? How do I look? How? All these questions can go through my mind. Are there safe spaces for me out there? And that's why, for example, I'm very careful as a straight middle-aged white man with all the privileges in the world whenever I go to support friends from the community where potentially they are performing in a gay pub or whatever, in a show or whatever. I'm always aware of the energy I bring to a space, because the LGBTQ community needs safe spaces out there. They need safe pubs. They need safe spaces where they can just be who they are. And of course, if I walk into one of those safe spaces with the way I look, with my, heavy metal T-shirt and, rugged good looks and slightly unkempt hair, what image do I bring with me? What energy do I bring with me? Do I make people feel unsafe in a place where they actually should be safe? And this is what hypervigilance means. I walk into a pub and most people wouldn't notice it. Now I have female clients, and what I mean by female clients is female assigned female at birth, but also trans female. Female is female, by the way, who do not feel safe going from a club or from a pub home. They have to have the same hypervigilance, the same thought. If I have a client, for example, that as soon as they hear a car brake or slow down behind them, they become incredibly hypervigilant. I have people that walk spaces where they are constantly on guard about the noises and about the chat and about the kind of noise pollution around them. There are people that I know that cannot go out with headphones on, not because they do not find the noise disturbing and overwhelming sometimes, but because they're so afraid that they will miss a auditory cue to defend themselves. This is not things that me, as I said, with my pinnacle of privilege, have to worry about. I can pretty much walk anywhere and pretty much do anything without having to second guess myself or to have this level of vigilance. Now, it doesn't mean I can be attacked, of course, but the point is I do not live with that fear that a lot of my clients do. So when we talk about hypervigilance being a thing that the community has to deal with, this is what we mean. We mean to the fact that they live a life in which they are more or less expecting some sort of negative interaction on a daily basis. Now, that may or may not happen. That may happen in certain spaces or may not happen in other spaces. The point is that it's not necessarily whether that will happen or not. It's the expectation that it will. Because we live in a world where the sort of anti-gay and anti-trans narrative is so strong and the public narrative is so toxic, it's not unreasonable for them to kind of live with this expectation. Whether it happens a lot, it's a different thing. But all the statistics do prove that actually members of the community are more likely to be accosted, insulted, harassed, or whatever in public than a heterosexual person. So one thing that as therapists we have to do, and I try to do with my clients, isn't so much oh, you'll be all right, you have nothing to be afraid of. That's not the point. They may be in a safe space, and yes, they have nothing to be afraid of in that space. Or I try to bring them to the here and now and say, okay, don't worry about what's happened or what will happen. Here and now, you are safe. And that's true. But what we have to understand is this realization or this element of hypervigilance that they expect things to happen to them on a daily basis. And whether they happen or not, as I say, it's neither here nor there. It's the fact that they could happen. And stuff that could happen to them, probability of that is a lot higher than to someone like me. So we need to understand that to make people feel safe, it's not enough to just say, oh, it will be all right, let me get you a cup of tea. It's to acknowledge the fact that they live in an element of stress that we do not always recognize. And when I say by we, I'm talking about the